Thank you, Tim. Yes, I'm one of the founding directors of Pinnacle Minerals. We only listed in March this year, actually, late March this year. So had a successful IPO and we've been pushing on since then. Bill Witham and Rob Hodby unfortunately couldn't join us today, but we've got a very flat structure in that we're all running the company. So a couple of photos there to open the presentation. They're from our Kojonup Bobolong project. So you can see that we're working in very flat land and the kaolin is very visible on surface. Next slide, please. Just move through the disclaimer. Next on. So I'll give you a summary of who we are. Like I said, we only just listed in March this year. The company went from inception in November last year through to listing in 4.5 months, and that's through the great support of our vendors, which was, Bill Witham and Rob Hodby, and a vendor out of New South Wales bringing in our South Australian projects. Commodity is kaolin. Kaolin is one of the most ubiquitous clays on earth, but you need certain qualities to actually be marketable. And we're targeting really a wide range of industries: paper and paperboard, ceramics, and cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. Then, of course, going into the technology sectors, it's especially the halosite products are being used in that technology sector, and companies such as Andromeda are really pioneering that. And we're very fortunate to have a project right next to their Camel Lake project. Our strategy really is a very simple business into develop a near-term cash flow. I mean, we are moving down product development now and really investigating the logistics about getting our products to various ports as quick as we can. We have qualified our products out of China and have identified our markets, which is a big step forward. And we're located in West Australia and South Australia. So we're a purely Australian company, kaolin products, and we couldn't be in better jurisdiction. And the team, Bill Witham in particular, our chairman, has really been involved in almost just about every kaolin project here in WA in some form, whether it's consulting or being involved in vending it. And these projects around Kojonup in particular come out of his portfolio. We floated with $4.5 million, and we've spent less than $1 million over the past 6 months pushing our projects forward. Next slide, please. So just a really summary on the corporate side of things. We've only got 36 million shares on issue. There really was no cheap stock. We basically did a very small seed raise at 16 cents and listed at 20 cents. Market cap, we have trading around about 13 cents at the moment. So we're trading at almost cash, only got an enterprise value of $1 million. So that's why I really enjoy the name of this webinar series being called Hidden Gems, because you'll see later on our peer comparison. I really do like to think we are one of the hidden gems, especially in the kaolin halosite space, on what is out there in the market on the ASX. Our top 20 shareholders really hold over 60% of the company. And then, our 3 vendors are there holding almost 20% of the company. Next slide, please. So that's our board, which I just went through. So Bill and Rob and myself, founding directors. Link Lou comes out of New South Wales. He brings a lot of corporate experience to our board. And then we've got Jay Stevenson, one of the best well-known company secretaries around Perth in particular. And we're a very flat structure in that we're all working on the company. And Bill and Rob are certainly putting in the hours, as are myself, in regards to running the company and not really having many external people involved. Next slide, please. So we've got 4 projects, all in Australia. Our lead projects are around the Kojonup region of Western Australia, which is only 130 k's north of Albany. So of a lot of our peers, we're much closer to any ports, and a lot of the kaolin companies are out in the wheat belt. And all our tenements are granted in the Kojonup region. They're the 2 projects called Bobolong and Holly. Bobolong being the most advanced. We've had samples go up for product qualification up in China. We just recently completed an auger drilling program to do some more resource work. We're waiting for final results on that. So that's part of our news flow coming up in the next month or 2, and working on expanding our current resource. Then our exploration projects are in South Australia. The White Knight project, which is down on the Eyre Peninsula, all those licenses are granted. They surround our Power Minerals and Andromeda. And then we got the application up in Camel Lake, which surrounds the Andromeda project, which really underpins their $300 million market valuation. Next slide, please. So kaolin, like I said, look, I won't spend much time. It's one of the most researched and ubiquitous clays in the world. It's used in everything from ceramics, fiberglass, paper coating, pharmaceuticals, rubber, plastics, but it is the primary source of HPA. And there's a lot of HPA work going on here in Australia, in particular for lithium-ion batteries. And we certainly believe our South Australian projects, as a minimum, will certainly contribute to that halloysite market. That's part of our upside. But in regards to our initial cash flow projects at Kojonup, that's purely a kaolin DSO type ore, and it's got such a number of wide uses that we're really confident on how the product qualification's been going. Next slide, please. So the Bobolong project, like I said, it's highly saleable. We've already had half a tonne sent up to Wuhan, which is the leading kaolin classifiers or qualifiers in China. We've got a report really being translated and finalised at the moment in regards to the products that were available, the markets that were available to sell into. It's a DSO ore, so it's a very simple beneficiation on site, and then really it becomes a marketing exercise on how much we can move from our Kojonup operations down to the port at Albany and then export out. So we are in that pre-scoping study stage. At the moment, we really don't require many drill holes to define our resource, and it's just a very simple project to get into production with a really unlimited scope on how much product we can sell. Next slide, please. The kaolin market's a huge market. It is, like I said, I keep stressing it's one of the most widely used clays in the world. You've got products that really are anywhere from sort of $300 to up to over almost $10,000 Australian a tonne, depending on where you sit in the production price line. There's a number of different peers in the market, including Andromeda, Latin Resources, it's Power Minerals now, and Suvo Strategic in particular announced a very interesting announcement today in regards to their production profile moving forward. And so it's these types of peers, including W Kaolin, that we will really be matching our project on and comparing ourselves to. You can see there on the right the samples that come out. So it's a very white clay, and that's what you're chasing there. And then you've got the halloysite, which is the high value product that we believe will be coming out of our South Australian projects. Next, please. So just go back to Bobolong. We're only 130 k's from Albany Port, which is really important. That gives us a big advantage in regards to our logistics compared to a number of our peers in the region, which really are anywhere from 300 kilometres plus out in the wheat belt. All our tenements are granted. We are now in offtake discussions with our various product potential buyers, and that's all on the back of the work that was being done out of China, out of the Wuhan Institute, and we have met all those specific specifications to allow us to go market our product. Next, please. The Holly project, sorry, just to keep going, Bobolong, which is actually next to Holly. We've had those brightness and whiteness and brightness tests done, which is very important. You want to be targeting plus 80% for your whiteness and brightness, which we've done. We've got a lovely mix of aluminium oxide and silicon dioxide. So there's a potential second product stream there with our silica, but we're certainly valuing ourselves only on our kaolin or clay products at the moment. All our test work is showing that we've got the right particle sizes, the right low number of impurities, and most importantly is that fourth point in regards to doing a DSO type operation. Now, what our Chinese suppliers or any suppliers or buyers in the world want from us as suppliers is they want consistency in regards to the quality of the product, and they want long-term contracts, long-term offtakes. They're not interested in 5 or 10 years. They're looking at 15 years plus, already talking 20 years plus. So they want an ongoing supply, being consistent at all times. And that's exactly what we can supply, we believe, because we're targeting a 10 million tonne resource as a minimum out there in the Kojonup region at our Bobolong project. So if we move on to the next slide, which is our Holly project, that's just north of our Bobolong project. This is what created the company, putting these two projects together. Thus, we believe, looking at the old CRA results, because CRA was very active in this region in the 90s, they targeted a massive plus 100 million tonne resource out there, and we've identified kaolin over 40 square kilometres. So that's an immediate addition to our Bobolong project in terms of exploration upside, and that's our part of our drilling program moving in the next 6 months. Moving on to our South Australian projects on the next slide. These projects surround some pretty well-known projects actually out there in the markets, particularly in Andromeda, and they're sort of really pioneering work on the halloysite market and the high-value halloysite. And we have got the Camel Lake project, which just surrounds their Camel Lake project. And then we're down on the Eyre Peninsula, where you've got a number of companies, including iTech, doing some really good work, as is Power Minerals and Ore Resources. So we are granted down on our White Knight projects now. We're going to be ready to start exploring there in the fourth quarter of this year. And what's been really interesting is following iTech and their REE results that they've been announcing over the past few weeks. And we'll certainly be looking at their REE potential down there. But the Camel Lake project, you've got the highlight halloysite horizons running into our project area, which will be part of our exploration program the second half of this year. Next slide, please. So that's Camel Lake, like I was saying, that's the underpins the Andromeda $300 million market cap, and we keep a very close eye on the work that they do. They really are pioneering that space, and we come with a historical exploration database by Rio Tinto and Iluka. Next, please. So this is a really important slide just to compare who our peers are out in the marketplace. Our NDAV is actually done as part of our IPO. Enterprise value actually is only $1 million at the moment, so we're almost at cash backing. But you can see most of our peers are really running at 10 to 20 times our current valuation. So this is why I love the name and being part of this Hidden Gems webinar series, is that we really believe we are part of a hidden gem that's hidden out there in the market and not being valued in relation to our peers. But that's fine because we're only a new company listing, and we are really, our next 6 months is where all our information, our market flow and ASX releases will be pouring out into the market. So really glad that people are watching this and seeing who we are and who we're compared to. Next slide, please. And so this is the final slide, our indicative news flow. Really, it's the next 6 months where all the news is going to be coming out. We've got our resource out at Bobolong, aromatic surveys. We've got drilling starting at Holly and White Knight. And then look, really by the end of the year, we're hoping going to be talking about offtakes, what prices we can expect, and then be drilling down at White Knight in South Australia.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tim.
I'm going to take the glasses off the top of my head.
Right.
Really interesting presentation. Thank you. Now with your kaolin samples, they've been qualified in China. Does that mean China is really the focus for you in regards to offtake agreements in the future?
Look, I will say it's a focus, Tim, but it's not our only target market by far. There is a worldwide kaolin market, particularly out of Europe and the paper manufacturers. Also, the Korean market is incredibly strong. But we've targeted the Wuhan market because, or say the Chinese market, because our directors, Bill Witham and Rob Hodby, have got history up in there. They actually sent that sample up in 2020 when it was a private company. And then, as we know, the world changed, especially in Wuhan. And so that's why it's been up there. And Wuhan University, what they do is they qualify the product and then go out to the various buyers out there in the Chinese market. So yes, it is our primary target, but no, it's not our only target.
And when you presented that kind of pricing scale, where do you fit on that scale?
Well, it's a good question as well, and that's what part of our product qualification is. And interestingly, Suvo announced today that they're going to be getting it plus $500 a tonne for their material. We believe we're in that market for the high volume material, so anywhere between 500 or say 500 and 1,000 for those paper coating type materials and ceramics type materials. But it's when you start looking at the halloysite or the highly beneficated material, that's when you start getting into the thousands of dollars per tonne. But at the moment, I'd say at the 500 or 1,000, but much higher volumes.
And what sort of, how's the industry developed? We've had Andromeda on before and other kaolin and halloysite players, or kaolin rather. What's the market looking like, particularly in South Australia, when you've got kind of lots of like-minded companies around where you are?
Well, it's again another good question. We go on people such as TMR and their research papers that are out there in the market. It's a very much I like to say it's a bellwether of GDPs. If economies are growing, your kaolin market's growing. And so that's why we believe, and also the research we have, is just growing in basically multiples of 10, 15 and 20% per annum, purely on the backs of GDPs worldwide. We all know about these inflation issues that are happening worldwide, so it will be very interesting to see how it happens on a global scale. But mate, that papers, ceramics, paints, etc., are always going to be used as the world grows. Thus, our kaolin market increases.
And what's the production process look like? How do you get it out of the ground and get it to port, for example?
Very, very simple, which is one of the really attractive things about exploring for kaolin. Just to take a step back, the drilling's very simple. It's shallow. We've been using augering. We think that the most complicated we'll have to use is basically air core drilling. And then it's essentially a quarry style operation because there's very little, like you're targeting horizons. You're not targeting, if you like a gold vein or something like that. So you're targeting whole horizons. On site, you'll do some separation of the clay material and the silicon material, and then maybe some drying to allow transport to be much more efficient. There might be some separation of grain sizes, and then that's it. So that's why we use the term DSO, direct ship ore, because you're not doing, if you like, on-site processing. But that said, part of our process over the next 6 months is to look at metakaolin, which is basically calcining the kaolin, heating it up and creating a much more high value product. So that's our research that we're doing as a company in regarding to adding value to our product.
And just finishing up on the indicative news flow here, what can we expect moving forward?
Well, really our next news flow is our drill results and resource coming out of Bobolong. So we're finalising that really over the next 4 weeks. We're commencing aeromagnetic surveys. We've got to go in line with the farming out there in the Kojonup region. And then we want to start getting our land access and start drilling at the Holly project really within the next 2 to 3 months. In South Australia, we want to leverage off all the work that's been done in the Eyre Peninsula. I'm involved in another company on the Eyre Peninsula called Power Minerals. We want to get round there and start drilling on the Eyre Peninsula at White Knight. And by the end of the year, we want to be talking about what potential prices are, and what potential volumes we'll be doing out of Kojonup out of our Bobolong project.
Stephen, thanks for your time. I know you're waiting on your COVID test. Good luck with that, and have a nice weekend.
No worries. Thanks, Tim.